Yeah, well, welcome back. Got a little more done on the cafe. Bob and I worked on it today. We worked on it a little bit yesterday, but not a lot of progress, so let me show you where we're at. Okay, I don't remember exactly what stage it was last time. I didn't go back and watch the video. One of the things we're addressing is that he picked up brand new controls, which means there's no age and oxidation to them. The brake master as well as the clutch perch. So we had to do a little modification to which used to be the clutch perch and also the high-low beam, the turn signal, and also the horn button. And obviously we painted it, just finished doing that, but originally the clutch perch is attached. I got a mess there. The clutch perch is attached to the electronics on this. So what we ended up doing, I cut this piece off of right about that position, so it sat kind of like that. So I cut it off, I ground off this part right here, nice and smooth down there, and at that time went ahead and painted it. What I'm currently working on now is the start button with the on-off is being painted. So that's the top part. The on-off switch is right here. Start button goes in the base portion of it, which is kind of hard to see. It's all black. Start button goes in that hole right there. Other things we've done is I took the battery box off the CX500 bobber, and that's what is here. I went ahead and took some measurements off of it. When I do these, I incorporate the rear brake switch, or the brake pedal switch, on the side of it. So I took some measurements off of it, took some real thin sheet metal, and I made a pattern out of it, and I dropped that off. Seems like a lot of people are looking for the battery box, so I'm going to go ahead and have 20 of them water jetted out, and I'll bring them home, use a spot welder, and bend them up, get them formed, and maybe I can help some other people out by getting them a battery box. So I made just this temporary one to mock Bob's up. I don't have the brake light switch on here yet, but this one here is a bit thinner metal, pretty light. I don't know that we've done anything else since last video, but that's where we're currently at. Well, I'm getting ready to put the right side switch, electronic switch control back together, and it occurred to me that this thing doesn't come apart real easy, so I'm going to cover a video on it. First, I'm going to show you how it looks before you take it apart, or how this one looked. Okay, so that's how it looks where it sits. The throttle barrel is on that. You can't really tell, but that this is actually red. No, it doesn't look like it in the picture, but it's kind of where we started out with Bob's. So on that you have the off, run, on, or no, off, run, off, as well as the start button and the throttle barrel. Well, this one doesn't return. This bike's pretty dirty and nasty, and you got the cables coming out of the bottom of that. And once again, so this is how the clutch perch and the left side electronics looks, and this piece right here is what we cut off so we could use Bob's new perch and utilize the original switch. So I'm gonna get this set up and I'll show you the reassembly of the right side, because it doesn't come apart quite as easy. On the left side, this here switch actually just pops off. Takes a little bit of work, but it does come off. There's a little copper piece underneath that helps the sliding of it, so don't lose that part. Other than that, it's just unbolting some screws or taking screws off that hold the wires in certain spots. The horn and the spring behind that, it can be a little tricky. This blinker switch is just held on in a pivot point in the very center. You get it apart, it's pretty self-explanatory, but this one here, not quite so easy, because you got to take that rocking or rolling, twisting piece out, and it doesn't come right off the top. One moment. Well, there are all the components. What would be nice is if all we had was just a half of a piece of metal, the switch, and then the other half completely free of wires, but not the case on the right side. the left side with the horn button and the high-low beam, as well as the blinker. You can do that with by taking out all the wires and a few screws and then these little plates that hold the wires in position. Just maybe take a picture before you take it apart so you can put it back together properly when you go back together. On the left side controls, no, right side controls, where the off, run, on switch is at, this part here is soldered on. It will not fit down through this hole that you can see in the bottom here. Well, let's see if we can get it there. Okay, it doesn't fit through this hole. So, and I've tried multiple different ways. Instead of taking it off and taking the soldering points loose, I decided to do it with it completely connected. So I disassembled the whole thing. I'll show you the reassembly. There's a couple springs, there's a detent ball, there's a copper connector in here. Lots of fun to deal with. You can't just pull this switch out the top because it's held in. There's a little groove right in here, and the groove is for an E-clip. Not a lot of fun getting out. Probably won't be too bad getting back in because it's more accessible to get in. Had to turn it to get the right spot. So let me get this set up and we'll get it back together. Okay, something I really wanted to cover. Now this is a little red now. I ended up using 600 grit sandpaper and wet sanding it, and then just putting anything with a fish oil in it or any type of light lubricant that is like a WD-40 has fish oil in it. Anyways, so it's back to a little bit of red, and when I sanded it, I took off the area that used to say engine stop or something, and I just flattened it out. You can just barely see it if I get the light just right. Anyways, in the bottom side of this thing, it has 3 springs. Let's see if we can get a view of this. We got a spring that goes in this hole, a spring that goes in this hole. At the very bottom, there's a spring that's still in this one, and that's where the little ball bearing, let's see if I can get it picked up. That's where the little ball bearing goes into. As well as, once the springs are in the top 2 holes, as I'm holding this, there's a copper connector. And this is what rotates around in that little piece that you leave in the switch and makes contact between the 2 of the 3 points that you need at any point. So I'm going to get this thing back together and see if I can do it with any sort of speed. The only thing I'm using is this mechanics pick. Time consuming. This is just a mechanics pick. Mine is made by Mac Tools. One is just a straight pick point. The other's got a 90 on it, kind of like a dental pick. It's got a little magnetism to it, which helps. Well, it did. Oh, it's stuck to the. It was stuck to the towel. Fun detailed work. Now, next to these springs, there's a little groove in here. Let's see if I can get it up here without dropping it. You can see the little groove here and the groove here. That's where these ears that stick off the ends set into. No, that's not how it goes. Could be a very long video. Okay, so it drops in there. So the spring is underneath of it. Now I got things sticking to my pick. The spring is underneath of it, just keep it pressed down. The next part is taking this and rotating it. And there are certain spots on this little electrical piece. Let's see. So you got 3 contact points. Part where the center portion of the switch goes. Then you got these 3 little dents here. That's where the ball bearing rides to keep it in detent of where it's supposed to be. Now the important part is not turning the red switch upside down, but putting this switch on top of it. I don't know how good this video is looking, but I'm sure my camera's Trying to focus at different times. Now holding it all in there if everything's where it's supposed to be, and I'm not sure that it is. Oh, there it goes. I'm going to try to rotate it. And it doesn't seem like it's working properly. Probably is, I just don't want to force it. Well, it's all in there, right? Yeah. Spring's working on the little detent ball. Those are pressing down. The spring is probably just into this little detent so far that I can't rotate it like I think I should be able to. I might have been off 180 degrees. Most likely I was. Now it rotates. So just enough of that little shaft sticks up right here for that E-clip to get in there. Oh, now I don't want magnetism and it's sticking. Won't go in. I said it could be a long video. Wow. Cannot push that in. I'm sure my fat thumb's blocking all the video. I just don't want that E-clip to fly off. There it goes. So I just used a flat screwdriver to push it in. Rotates nice and easily. Next part is right, that copper piece right there, or brass piece right there, is where the screw goes in, and this is the hole for it here. So once I set it back in position, it's got a very specific shape hole in this piece that's been painted, and then it lines up. Oh, that piece is sticking to my pick. And it lines up the threaded brass piece with this casing. And remembering which screws go where, guarantee will be a huge advantage. And when you do this, make sure your screwdriver is a good quality, nice sharp edges, because these screws are in very tight and they're very small. The rest of it goes quite easily because it's just dropping the start button back through the hole here. But that's really the part I wanted to cover. I might do a video of putting the the throttle barrel back in here and setting the cables up. A lot of people have problems when they reposition the throttle barrel on a different set of bars, dropping the height, moving it forward, whatever it might be, that the throttle doesn't like to return, it sticks. That's going to be a video I'll cover because you always run into it whenever you change bars, it seems like. Alright, well, it's all back together. I'll give you a quick shot of how the little keepers are supposed to look. Keepers by meaning these pieces that hold the wires down. Really hard to see when everything's black. But that keeper goes on that way, and it holds right in here. Oh, bad video. Holds right in here, the part that goes up to the on-off switch, and that keeps it away from where the bars are going to sit in here. The top side, there's a keeper in here that holds that wire coming up to the top. That's the orientation it sits. There's an electrical connection right. How can you see that? Can't. Oh, you can kind of see that. Let me get this rotated a little. You can't rotate too far because the wire connects to halves is real bad. There's an electrical connection right here, real close to where this is at. You want to make sure this keeper isn't rotated around connecting that. Let me get the throttle barrel back in it and get it back on the bike. Okay, well there's the finished product with the new electronics. Well, I should say the refurbished electronics with the new clutch perch and master cylinder. The clutch perch that he picked up does have the wiring ability to pull the clutch and start in gear. I just don't have the wires hooked up to it yet. Left side on. Now, like I remember telling you that the clutch perch was part of this electronics component. I just cut it off, shaved it down, repainted it after taking it apart. Right side on, and the new master cylinder for the front brake. Brake line's not on here yet. The switch, actually you can just barely see the male plug piece right here. You can see the hole in it. That's the switch for the brake lights. Covered the throttle sticking issue. Also showed how to remove that red rocker or twist switch, so you can repaint that plastic, or no, the metal part on the right side. If you're not watching this on my YouTube video and you've caught it somewhere else, maybe on Instagram or Facebook, my YouTube channel is 503 Diggers. I am in Oregon, which is the 503, the area code, and the digger part refers to the metal detecting channel you're actually seeing this on, because I don't have a channel for bike builds. Well, I'm going to cut it here, and until next time, that's currently where Bob's Cafe Racer is sitting, and we'll get done some more on it and do some more videos maybe.